So who are you and what do you do?
I am Kevin Grace. Official title is Managing Editor for 343 Industries. I work on, well, pretty much anything these days that has a Halo story in it. I'm taking a look and trying to keep everything stitched together with the help of everybody else here in the studio. Obviously, it's a bigger job than any one fella, but I work a lot with Frank on novels, comics, lots and lots of work this last year on the anime, on Legends a lot.
So when you say you worked on those things, like, can you elaborate as to what you were actually doing with those things?
Yeah, it varies a little bit. It's interesting working with the different partners, is the different processes, what goes into making a comic book versus making an anime episode versus making a short story anthology. They're all a little bit different, which is a lot of fun because we want everything to be very Halo and very faithful to the universe, but we also want to allow some interpretation for the different artists. They're going to have their own style, and we don't want everything to just look like a complete carbon copy of everything else. So we can let the artists have their style, but figure out where to push back and say this needs to be more like what we've seen from the games. It's always kind of a balancing act, and it's very interesting, and I know I'm very glad to be able to work with Frank on that, because he's been doing that for a long time, has helped me kind of understand when to push back, when to let go, in order to make it a good Halo experience, but an original Halo experience and something that's new and is interesting for people.
Can you give us an idea of like what your background is, what the history of Kevin Grace is?
The history of Kevin Grace. I come from Kansas originally, where I was a lawyer for a while, actually, and then decided that I didn't like being a lawyer, and moved out to Seattle, and was lucky enough to find a job at Microsoft. Worked in Office user assistance, which is a little different than games, but actually taught me a lot about making software. I mean, because at the end of the day, games is about making software, and so a lot of the challenges actually kind of cross over pretty well, from making great big software like that to making a game. It was an interesting training over there for about 7 years. But for much of the time I was over there, I was trying to find a job in games, because games is what I've always done. This is what my brain always goes to when I have any spare time.
So I understand you have a story in Halo Evolutions?
Yes, I wrote a story called The Return. It is a story about a subject that I've always been really interested in, like Covenant politics. It's a little bit of a nerdy thing to dig on for the Halo games, but
cool nerdy.
But it's cool nerdy. It's very Halo 2 nerdy. But something about that story in 2 really grabbed me, and so the idea of what would happen to the Covenant, what would happen to, a group like the Covenant, like an entire society where everything they believed and based all their actions on is tied to basically one thing. And then you find out that one thing, the Great Journey, is hooey. And then, so like, what do you do? So that question on how those creatures, how would people react to it? How would aliens react to it? Is something that I've kind of been thinking about for quite a while. And so when the opportunity to write a story came up, I thought that it was time to flesh out some of those ideas and to see how it turned out.